People spend their entire lives trying to change the world around them, never realizing that the only world they ever experience is the one taking place within them. Every moment, every reaction, every delay, every miracle is first born as a conversation you are having with yourself. Not out loud, not for others to hear, but silently, persistently, faithfully. And that inner dialogue is not innocent. It is creative. It is law. It is shaping tomorrow while you believe you are merely thinking. You may believe words spoken in silence are harmless, but they are the most powerful words you will ever speak, for they are spoken with belief. And belief is what gives life its form. When you say to yourself, "This is hard," life arranges itself to confirm that statement. When you say, "Nothing ever works for me," circumstances rise up faithfully to agree. Life does not argue. It obeys. It does not judge your words. It accepts them as commands. Now imagine what would happen if for just 3 days you became deliberate with that conversation. Not hopeful, not desperate, but deliberate. Imagine if you spoke inwardly as though the outcome were already settled, as though the desire were already fulfilled, as though the version of you who has succeeded were the only version allowed to speak. Most people talk to themselves as victims of life. They rehearse their disappointments. They relive their failures. They explain to themselves why things didn't work and why they probably won't. And then they wonder why the same scenes repeat. But the mind is not there to entertain you. It is there to execute. It takes the tone, the feeling, the assumption of your inner speech and externalizes it as experience. You do not attract what you want. You express what you are conscious of being. And consciousness is revealed in self-talk. Listen carefully to how you speak to yourself when no one is listening. That is the truest confession of your state. For 3 days you must become aware, not of the world, but of the narrator within you. That voice that comments on everything. That voice that says, "This is taking too long," or "I don't think this will happen," or "Why is this always my luck?" That voice is not harmless commentary, it is a script, and life is performing it flawlessly. If you desire change, you do not wrestle with circumstances. You replace the script. You change the language of identity. You stop saying "I hope" and begin saying "I am." You stop asking "When will it come?" and begin affirming "It is done," not with strain, not with emotion, but with quiet certainty. For these 3 days, your inner speech must come from the end. Speak only from fulfillment. When the mind asks, "But how?" you do not answer. How is none of your concern. Life knows ways you do not. Your only responsibility is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and let that assumption speak through you. If you desire freedom, do not say "I will be free." Say "I love how free I feel." If you desire success, do not say "One day I'll succeed." Say "Everything works in my favor." If you desire love, do not say "I hope they choose me." Say "I am chosen, I am cherished." These are not affirmations spoken to convince. They are statements spoken from identity. Your inner conversation should sound as though the matter has already been settled, as though the universe has already agreed, as though you are remembering rather than requesting. Most people fail here because they try to feel excitement. But excitement is unstable. Certainty is quiet. The tone you want is naturalness. Speak to yourself the way you would if the desire were already a normal fact of life. You would not shout, you would not beg, you would simply acknowledge. The mind may protest. It will bring up evidence. It will remind you of time, of odds, of past failures. Do not argue. Argument implies doubt. Simply return to the chosen inner speech, again and again, gently, firmly, persistently. You are not fighting the mind, you are training it. For 3 days, refuse to indulge in inner conversations that contradict your desire. If you catch yourself explaining failure, stop. If you hear yourself anticipating disappointment, revise it. Speak again inwardly from the position of fulfillment. If something unwanted happens during these days, do not react as the old self would. Reaction is agreement. Instead, inwardly say, "This changes nothing," and return to the assumption. The world is always rearranging itself. Do not mistake movement for denial. Your inner speech should be saturated with gratitude, not as politeness, but as recognition. Gratitude is the natural response of one who has received. When you say inwardly, "I'm so thankful this worked out," you are speaking as one who stands on the other side of the bridge. Sleep is especially important during these 3 days. As you fall asleep, let the last conversation be one of fulfillment, not a visualization filled with effort, but a simple inner remark like, "I'm so glad it's done," or "This feels so natural now." Sleep seals assumption. It is the most receptive state. You are not trying to make something happen in 3 days. You are establishing a state. Once the state is assumed, expression is inevitable. The seed does not struggle to become a tree, it simply remains what it is. Understand this clearly. Your inner speech is not describing reality, it is selecting it. Each statement is a choice. Each assumption is a doorway. Life will enter through the door you leave open. For years, you may have spoken unconsciously, repeating inherited beliefs, fears, limitations. 3 days of conscious speech can undo years of unconscious creation. Not because time matters, but because assumption does. You will notice subtle changes first, a lightness, a calm, a sense that you no longer need to chase. These are signs that the state has shifted. Do not seek signs, do not look for confirmation. The desire for proof is doubt in disguise. Continue speaking inwardly as the one who knows. Not loudly, not emotionally, just faithfully, even when nothing seems to be happening. Especially then, remember that the outer world is the echo. Inner speech is the voice. Do not argue with echoes, change the voice. If you persist in this for 3 days, truly persist, you will not need to force belief. Belief will follow assumption. And assumption, once hardened into fact, must objectify itself. You must understand that the mind has been conditioned for years to speak in limitation. So when you begin to change the inner conversation, it may feel unnatural. That discomfort is not a sign of failure, it is evidence of transition. You are stepping out of an old state and into a new one. And states resist change not because they are powerful, but because they are familiar. Do not be alarmed if old thoughts arise. They will. The mind will replay old dialogues automatically, like a recording that has been played too many times. Your task is not to destroy the old recording, but to stop giving it your attention. Attention is agreement. What you attend to, you animate. What you ignore, dissolves. For these 3 days, you become the gatekeeper of your inner world. You decide which thoughts are allowed to speak and which are dismissed without ceremony. You do not wrestle with them. You do not analyze them. You simply replace them. Replacement is power. If the old voice says, "This isn't working," you quietly say, "Everything is unfolding perfectly." If it says, "You're being unrealistic," you respond inwardly, "I am aligned with what is true for me." These responses are not arguments, they are declarations, and you must speak them as facts, not wishes. The moment your inner speech sounds like pleading, you have moved back into the state of lack. Desire spoken from fulfillment feels calm, settled, almost ordinary. Notice how often you explain things to yourself. Explanation is usually justification for remaining the same. When something doesn't happen immediately, the mind rushes to explain why. For these 3 days, stop explaining. Explanation reinforces delay. Silence followed by assumption is far more powerful. You may wonder, is it enough to just talk to myself differently? That question itself reveals how little people understand the nature of reality. Everything you see began as an inner claim. Every invention, every relationship, every success was first accepted inwardly before it appeared outwardly. The world you call real is simply the final stage of imagination. Your inner speech is imagination verbalized, and imagination, when believed, hardens into fact. It is not fantasy, it is the blueprint. When you say inwardly, "I always land on my feet," life arranges falls that end in standing. When you say, opportunities find me, chance meetings and unexpected openings appear, not because the words are magic, but because the assumption behind them is law. For 3 days, assume that life is friendly. Speak to yourself as one who expects cooperation. Even when something appears to resist you, inwardly say, this is rearranging for my benefit. That statement, if persisted in, will prove itself. The outer world cannot contradict a sustained inner claim. It may delay, it may reorganize, it may appear chaotic, but it must eventually conform. Reality has no choice. It reflects consciousness the way a mirror reflects form. People often fail because they try to control the outer world while neglecting the inner dialogue that commands it. You do not command life by force. You command it by assumption. For these 3 days, let your inner speech be simple. Complexity is the refuge of doubt. A few phrases repeated with conviction are more powerful than long emotional declarations. Choose statements that imply completion. I knew this would work out. Everything always aligns for me. This feels so natural now. I'm exactly where I need to be. Let these be the language of your inner world. Let them arise automatically in response to life. When you wake, when you walk, when you wait, when you fall asleep, especially when you are idle, notice where the mind wanders. Idle moments reveal your dominant state. Train those moments gently. Bring the conversation back. If you speak inwardly as one who is chosen, you will stop chasing. If you speak inwardly as one who is secure, you will stop fearing loss. If you speak inwardly as one who is successful, effort will feel inspired rather than strained. Effort from lack exhausts. Action from assumption flows. Do not look for immediate dramatic change. That expectation creates pressure. Assure implies uncertainty. Let the shift be internal first. The outer must follow, but it follows its own rhythm. And remember, reaction is optional. Just because something appears does not mean you must accept it as final. The moment you react emotionally, you reaffirm the old state. Instead, revise inwardly. Speak a different conclusion. If something disappoints you, inwardly say, that turned out better than expected, and mean it. Meaning is not emotion, meaning is acceptance. Accept the new version inwardly, and the outer will catch up. For 3 days, live as though your inner world is the cause and the outer world is the effect. Because that is the truth, whether acknowledged or not. Your inner speech should become so natural that it feels like memory rather than invention. You are not creating something new. You are remembering who you are when limitation is removed. And if doubt whispers, let it whisper. You do not need to silence it. You simply do not let it speak last. The last word before sleep, before stillness, before acceptance, that is the word that plants the seed. Stay faithful to the inner conversation, not because you are trying to get something, but because you are choosing who you are. And who you are determines what you experience. When you begin to live this way, you will notice that your need to convince others disappears. The urge to explain, to defend, to justify fades because inner certainty replaces outer validation. People who are secure inwardly do not argue for their worth, they assume it. And life responds accordingly. For years, many have allowed the world to speak to them, telling them who they are, what is possible, what is reasonable. For these 3 days, reverse that relationship. Let the inner voice speak first. Let the world listen. You are not required to believe in visible evidence. Evidence is always delayed. If you wait for proof before changing your inner speech, you will remain trapped in repetition. Proof follows assumption, not the other way around. The moment you accept something inwardly as true, you have shifted states, and states, once occupied, must externalize themselves. Time is only the interval between acceptance and visibility. During these 3 days, you may feel moments of stillness, as though you are no longer striving. That stillness is power. Creation does not require effort, it requires permission. And permission is granted through assumption. Speak inwardly as one who expects good news, as one who anticipates resolution, as one who knows that even delays are adjustments, not denials. The quality of expectation shapes the quality of experience. If you catch yourself rehearsing a future problem, stop. That rehearsal is an act of creation. Replace it with a different scene, a different remark. Say inwardly, "That resolved itself easily," and move on. Do not linger. Lingering gives weight. Weight is not given by circumstance, it is given by attention. For these 3 days, give weight only to what you desire. Everything else is temporary, transitional, and without authority unless you grant it one. The inner voice must become your trusted guide. It should speak gently, confidently, without urgency. Urgency implies lack of faith. Calm implies knowing. When you speak inwardly, do not ask questions. Questions keep the mind searching. Statements settle the mind. Let your inner language be declarative. I am supported. I am guided. Everything aligns. These are not hopes. They are acknowledgments. You will begin to notice that situations which once triggered anxiety no longer do. That is because the state has shifted. You are no longer reacting from fear, but responding from assumption. This is the true meaning of control, not control of events, but control of interpretation. And interpretation is expressed through inner speech. If something appears to go wrong, you do not panic inwardly. Panic is an admission of defeat. Instead, you say calmly, "This is working out in ways I can't yet see." And you allow it to be so. Your inner world must become a place of refuge, not conflict. Most people live in constant mental argument with life. For these 3 days, let that argument end. Agreement is powerful. When you agree inwardly with success, with harmony, with fulfillment, life has no resistance to offer. You are not persuading a reluctant universe. You are aligning with a responsive one. Life is not withholding, it is reflecting. The moment you change the reflection, the mirror must follow. It cannot do otherwise. And so you walk, speak, think, and rest as one who knows the end. Not anxiously awaiting it, but calmly assuming it. When doubt returns, as it may, do not dramatize it. Simply return to the inner speech that implies fulfillment. Repetition without emotion is far more effective than passion, followed by inconsistency. Consistency is faith in action. 3 days of consistent inner speech can establish a habit. A habit of assumption becomes a lifestyle, and a lifestyle of assumption becomes destiny. But destiny is not something far away. It is being spoken into existence, moment by moment, word by word, inwardly. Listen closely to yourself. You will hear the future forming. There comes a point when the inner conversation no longer feels like something you are doing, but something you are being. The words arise naturally, without effort, without reminder. That is when the state has been entered. And once entered, it does not need maintenance through force, it sustains itself through familiarity. You will notice that the mind no longer rushes ahead to negative conclusions. Where it once anticipated failure, it now pauses. And in that pause, you choose. Choice is the moment of power. Every moment contains it, though few recognize it. For these 3 days, recognize that you are never reacting to life itself, only to the meaning you have assigned it inwardly. Change the meaning, and the experience changes. This is not philosophy, it is function. If you say inwardly, "This always works out," your nervous system relaxes. When the body relaxes, the mind becomes receptive. And in receptivity, new outcomes are allowed. Your inner speech should sound like trust. Trust has a rhythm. It is slow, assured, unhurried. There is no chasing in trust. There is no fear of loss. There is only expectation. Expectation is silent confidence. When you expect something, you do not constantly think about it, you simply know. That knowing is the tone your inner voice must carry. Speak as though reminding yourself of what is already obvious. If you desire change in relationships, do not rehearse conversations of conflict. That rehearsal plants conflict. Instead, speak inwardly as though harmony is the norm. Say, "We understand each other so easily now," and let that be the final word. If you desire abundance, do not count what is missing. Counting lack is agreement with it. Instead, inwardly remark, "I always have more than enough," and move on. Let the statement settle without inspection. Inspection delays, acceptance accelerates. During these 3 days, stop monitoring progress. Monitoring implies uncertainty. You do not check on something you trust. You allow it to unfold. The moment you feel the urge to check, to worry, to look for signs, gently return to inner speech that implies completion. Not with frustration, but with calm redirection. You are not fighting habits. You are forming new ones. Your inner voice should never scold or criticize. Self-criticism reinforces identity with failure. Speak to yourself as you would to someone you respect and trust. That tone matters. Kindness in inner speech is not weakness, it is alignment. Harshness is resistance disguised as discipline. As these 3 days continue, you may notice synchronicities, small shifts, subtle confirmations. Do not cling to them. Clinging implies fear of loss. Simply acknowledge inwardly, of course, and continue. Normality is the hallmark of belief. What feels normal persists. What feels extraordinary fades. Make your desire feel normal through repeated inner acknowledgement. Speak as though you are recalling a memory rather than inventing a future. Memory has weight. Memory carries authority. And understand this, the inner voice you cultivate during these 3 days does not disappear afterward. It becomes the foundation of how you experience life. Life does not require your effort, it requires your consent. Consent is given through assumption. Assumption is spoken inwardly. You are consenting to outcomes every moment, whether consciously or not. For these 3 days, let that consent be deliberate. Do not fear mistakes. There are none. Every redirection is progress. Every moment of awareness is mastery. The world you see tomorrow is being shaped by the words you speak inwardly today. And the world you see tonight is the echo of yesterday's conversation. And as this understanding deepens, you begin to sense that the outer world has never been the cause, only the messenger. Faithfully delivering the content of the inner dialogue you have been holding as true. What you have been hearing is not a technique, not a ritual, not a temporary exercise, but a revelation of how life has always been working. The voice within you has never been neutral. It has been shaping your days, your encounters, your outcomes with perfect obedience. The only difference now is awareness. And awareness changes everything. The moment you realize that your inner speech is creative, you are no longer at the mercy of circumstance. You become the author rather than the reader. 3 days are not important because of time, but because of decision. 3 days of deliberate inner speech prove to you that you are not powerless, not forgotten, not dependent on chance. They prove that the world listens. And once you see that it listens, you will never speak inwardly the same way again. You will choose your words with care, not out of fear, but out of respect for their power. Carry this knowing with you. Let your inner voice be calm, faithful, and certain. Speak only what you are willing to experience. Assume only what you wish to live. And as you do, you will find that life does not need to be forced, fixed, or chased. It simply rearranges itself around the quiet authority of one who finally understands that the most important conversation they will ever have is the one they are having with themselves.